Hey there. Welcome to the Monday edition of The Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I hope you had a great weekend. I didn't have a good weekend watching Cardinals baseball. I don't think you did either. If, in fact, you're still watching Cardinals baseball. I'm Bernie Miklasz, and I've been expressing strong sports opinions in the St. Louis market without interruption, without or that much of a hassle either, since the summer of 1989. I'm very grateful to have such a wonderful career in such a great sports town, city that I love. St. Louis Sports Central is my home for 5 videos plus 5 columns each week. I'm a regular on KMOX Radio, also the Cardinal Territory video podcast with Katie Wu, and I do a weekly Seeing Red Cardinals podcast with Will Leach every Monday, and I think we're going to be seeing red the next time we do it. A sincere thank you for your support of all that I do here in this wonderful sports market. Today's topic, broken after the All-Star break. That's right. Broken after that weekend in Arizona. Or I could actually use, 3 words for an alternative version of what I'm saying. 3 words: sell, sell, sell. There's nothing to discuss here. There's nothing to debate. There's absolutely no reason to sit there and hold on to tradable assets with some ridiculous pipe dream that you're going to make the playoffs. The Cardinals have been in decline and getting worse and worse and worse and worse for quite a long time now this season. And I said it last week in a video, and it especially bears repeating after that mess, that disgraceful mess we saw from the Cardinals out in Phoenix, Arizona. We could put it another way. You can use another 3 words if you want. Blow it up. Not literally, and not like, the whole team start a major rebuild. That would be a stupid overreaction. I'm not saying that, but this isn't any time to tiptoe into the deadline. This isn't any time to sit and hem and haw. Oh, well, maybe we can still make it. No. The Cardinals have been revealed because the truth about them has been revealed. And the Diamondbacks actually, I think, did the St. Louis Cardinals and their president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, a huge favor over the weekend with a ridiculous, easy 3-game sweep of an overwhelmed and overmatched and seemingly disinterested Redbirds team that did not put up a fight. It was an embarrassing weekend in Phoenix with the Cardinals losing the 3 games by a combined score of 22-7. The Redbirds never had the lead, not once, in 27 innings of baseball. The Cardinals pulled a no-show in all 3 games because they got outscored. If you take the first 3 innings of those 3 games, the Cardinals were outscored 16-0 in the first 3 innings. It was an absolute disaster. Cardinals starting pitchers Andre Palante, Sonny Gray, and Miles Mikolas were destroyed for 13 earned runs and 24 hits and 4 home runs in 12 innings. That's a 13.50 ERA. None of them made it through 5 innings. And then I had to laugh. I just have you just have to laugh how the St. Louis Cardinals can let this go on, because after giving up 5 earned runs in 4 innings and 2 monstrous home runs to Eugenio Suarez, he just just threw 2 meatballs that Suarez tried to hit to New Mexico. He almost made it. Miles Mikolas, I don't know if you caught the soundbite after the game on, Cardinals TV, but he was saying, well, they hit 2 balls hard, and unfortunately, both of them were home runs. He said, but let me see if we get this quote straight. I wrote it down. But other than that, pretty solid. Pretty solid. What? I mean, if you needed yet another example of how the standards have fallen and what the Cardinals are willing to put up with, instead of just letting a washed-up pitcher stay and pitch, instead of saying, you know what, get on back to Jupiter, Florida. We don't need you. Thank you for your service. That's it. Any guy who comes out after getting his ass beat like that, and he's going to look in a camera and say, other than that, pretty solid. I mean, Why would anyone that has any position authority, including Ali Marmol, want this guy around? Is that the kind of attitude you want? You want to set that example for your young pitchers and players? It's disgusting. All right. Yes, it is difficult to win games when your starting pitchers are so utterly defenseless and basically take you out of a game, get you knocked out of a game after it begins. But as horrendous as Palante and Gray and Mikolas were, this does not excuse the lethargic showing, the just terrible performance by the St. Louis offense, which scored a run in only 5 of the 27 innings. And they also went 3 for 23 with runners in scoring position. The at-bats were, just so many wasted, empty at-bats. I don't care about guys being banged up. And Ali Marmol, who I defend all the time, I'm tired of hearing about that. The Cardinals had to put Nolan Gorman on the IL because he strained his lower back. And that's coming after a 4-day break in the All-Star game. But, Ali just seems to be saying this more and more and more, and I don't like it. It's like, well, we got a lot of guys banged up. Yeah, you do. But so does every team in the major leagues. Quit trying to cover the team's backside with that stuff, okay? This is not like the pony league baseball, all right? Baseball seasons in the major leagues are hard. They're long. Guys get beat up. They get banged up. You're no different than the other 29 teams. And what made me mad about the fact the Cardinals, I'm going to get to what really made me mad. See, I'm warming up, my friends. But this offensive no-show, think about this. Before the series, Arizona had gone into the All-Star break, allowing an average of 5 runs per game. They were getting beat up left and right. And then the Cardinals go in there, and I really don't care that they didn't have Nolan Gorman. I wish he would have been there. But, Arenado's just coming back from his shoulder, and this guy and that guy. Oh, I don't want to hear about that. The Cardinals barely put a scratch on the Diamondbacks pitchers, okay? No excuses. Stop with the excuses. Stop it. I was genuinely surprised by the pathetic lack of compete. That's what they say in hockey. I like when hockey coaches say, or the players say, well, what happened tonight? Well, we didn't have the compete level. Well, if you watched any of that mess out in Arizona, the Cardinals at no point had any compete level. And this was, again, I'm sorry, and I'll say this for the last time because I'm being redundant. And this was after all this muling by the team before the All-Star break about having all these players so tired, so banged up. You had 4 days off before you had to go back to play again. And you came out, you were flat as could be, and you were largely lifeless when this season resumed on Friday. There is no justification for that. Where was the energy? Where was the desire to get after it and pick up the pace, understanding the situation you're in? Where is the spirit that I and many others have praised them for? When the Cardinals got back into action Friday, they had only 65 regular season games left on the schedule. And though they still were in the hunt for the pursuit of a third wild card spot, anybody who's not a total homer and who has been paying attention knows that the Redbirds have been fluttering and falling and losing for quite a while now. My point, despite losing 8 of their last 12 games before the All-Star break, this team was still remarkably fortunate to be so close in the standings. So that's what makes happened in Arizona even worse. What happened there even worse. Because, you were getting beat, having a hard time putting stuff together, right? Losing a lot of series, so on and so forth. But you were still right there. So with that in mind, where was this team's urgency in Arizona? Where was this recognition? It was like, boys, we got knocked around a little bit, but we got 4 days off. Now we got 65 games left, and let's get after this thing. Let's get after this thing. There was no sign of that anywhere. And this was extremely disappointing, and I have to reassess the level of respect, frankly, that I've had for this team. While recognizing their flaws in the poor roster construction, and really, in a way, the worst thing the Cardinals could ever do was play over their heads and benefit from, batted ball luck and just overcome a lot of things and, put together a pretty good season up until a point where they just couldn't overcome all those things again. I had given the Cardinals benefit of the doubt, even with the flaws on the team or the things where it's like, when the other shoe drops, that kind of thing. And also the typical John Mozeliak roster construction. But the Cardinals look like quitters at Arizona, and they lost more ground in the wild card standings. And frankly, I don't want to hear anybody say, well, Bernie, they're only 3.5 out. I don't want to hear it. Okay. Watch the team. Watch how they've been playing since the end of May. Okay. That's the team. That is the team. All right. Don't be going back to some stretch in May where they were great. The Cardinals' true colors and true composition in terms of flaws and what they can do and can't do, all of that has been exposed. The vulnerabilities have been popped open. And now it's time to sell. Now, I ain't the first gentleman to say this. I'm pretty sure, actually, by the time I do this video, that's everybody's saying this, and I know that. But there's people also have sort of different versions of what selling means. And I think this is where I'm maybe different than some, right? I'm not into the whole, well, they'll do a soft sell. They got some walk-year players, but they're not going to do anything drastic. They're not going to do anything major. I'm talking about selling. As often, this is like, okay, well, we got some baked goods here, then let's put it on the table. Someone will come along and buy them. And that'll be that. Got to think bigger, man. Got to be more aggressive than that. And I'll explain that as we go along. Trust me. But the Cardinals have tradable assets that must be moved, and I don't want to hear it. They have to be moved. And if Mozeliak doesn't do that, then he will have done it again, damaged the franchise again in two different ways. Number one, by not, I've had so many fans tell me, and I'm so thankful that they say this because I agree with them 100%. They say, the only way the trade deadline is a failure for the Cardinals is if John Mozeliak doesn't sell. And I agree with that completely. So by not selling and by, kind of toe that line, it is the season of the Mozeliak mediocre middle, right? Excuse me, the Mozeliak, I can't speak. I'm so mad. The Mozeliak mediocre middle, right? It's the season of that. So he's always kind of just like walk those lines between mediocre, kind of good sometimes. Trying to, okay, we're bad, but hey, we'll be okay. And, we still think we have a chance, all of that garbage and that nonsense. So the more that he does this, he hems and haws and procrastinates and convinces himself his team's better than it is. And he knows better, but he's on his way out. So he's thinking it's going to be like, Miracle on Ice. This is going to be like Herb Brooks and, the Miracle on Ice team in 1980. Come on. So the more that he puts off what he has to do, or if he does a soft version of what he must do, well, all that's going to do, you're going to have, you think the Cardinals have alienated a lot of their fans. Just look at the attendance. So they'll alienate even more fans who are disappointed or disgusted, who are staying away from Busch Stadium already. The Cardinals have dropped to 17th now among the 30 franchises in average tickets sold per home game. And this should embarrass Chairman Bill DeWitt Jr. and John Mozeliak. And listen, nobody cares now. You do think if the Cardinals are in a wild card race and it's like, September 1st and they're 2 games out or they're 3 games out, what? These fans have stayed, and school's about to be back in session and all that. You think these fans have stayed away from Busch Stadium all season? All of a sudden, there's going to be a big rush down to the ballpark? Come on. Can we stay in the real world? Can we go back into the real world here? So the Cardinals have already lost so much of their fan base, and the fact that if John Mozeliak does the one thing that can can be good coming out of this, his final year, it's to leave the Cardinals in better shape for your next guy. Like, don't hold on to assets that you should sell and can sell. And that brings me to the second damaging blow. If Mozeliak does the Mozeliak thing and refuses to sell for whatever reason he can come up with, is how it will probably impact Chaim Bloom when he takes over as Mozeliak's replacement as president of baseball operations. You can't let players with expiring contracts walk out of here without cashing them in for some young talent that can help this team by increasing the talent pool as the new Bloom regime moves in. This is about as simple of a question or simple of a project or simple of the most simple task that you can even imagine. There is nothing there to argue on behalf of holding on to these tradable walk-year assets and getting nothing for them. It's an indefensible position. So is it possible for Mo to do any more damage than he already has? Well, yeah, I just explained why. He can still do more damage. And that's why the DeWitts, although this ain't going to happen, that's why the DeWitts are going to have to intervene and order Mozeliak to go into the full seller mode. Because the fans ain't coming back this year anyway, all right? Everything should be geared toward 2026. Get the worst behind you and then move on to a better future with new leadership. And if Mozeliak, and I'm using this term a lot, and I apologize because I just can't think of one right now off the top of my head. But if he continues to hem and haw and hesitate, you know what you do? He's near the finish line anyway. The DeWitts won't do this, but you say, John, we love you. It's been great, but why don't you clear out your desk and get the heck out of here? We'll let Chaim. Chaim's going to handle the trade deadline because we got to get something done here that's going to set us up better, even if it's only slightly better for 26, 27 and beyond. So the Cardinals have 10 games to play before the All-Star break, and I'll tell you another thing I don't care about. I don't care if they catch a spark and win some of these games. It's time that we all stop buying fool's gold, okay? And I'm guilty of doing that, by the way. The Cardinals exceeded expectations for quite a while for a number of reasons, but they couldn't continue to rise above their mediocre to average talent level and all the holes that were there that at some point were probably going to bust wide open, right? This unraveling took some time, and I give the Cardinals credit for hanging in there and, at one point getting to 9 games over 500. But we all wondered, could this last? Hey, when they were good, I said, hey, they're good. But the question was always, can it last? And it hasn't lasted, and there's no reason to think that all of this losing is just a phase. In other words, like, oh, well, they just started losing. No, I'm going to lay it all out for you. They've been losing for quite a while. So if you're hoping for some miracle turnaround, save your emotions. There's no need to waste your emotions on something so silly. When I return, I'll explain why, and I'll go into some specifics. First, I want to tell you about DraftKings and the Daily Pick 6 game fantasy contest. If you think you know your baseball, then put that sharp mind to work and take a shot at winning big cash prizes through the Daily Pick 6 fantasy contest at DraftKings. And DraftKings Pick 6, you just focus on player stats, select anywhere from 2 to 6 players. Choose whether that individual player will go higher or lower than the specific stat line set for his next game by DraftKings. Yep, Pick 6 really is that simple, and it's a lot of fun. So get in the game and take your best shot at getting that cash, right? Good time for it. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and many more. It's easy to get going. You download the DraftKings app, which is outstanding, and then you open an account. Then you choose your sport, you pick your players, and you're in the game. New players at DraftKings get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, let's reset in my second segment, the wayward downward trends of a St. Louis Cardinals team that has gone really into a straight up free fall. And I don't know how anyone could contest that, but whatever. As John Lennon, one of his lyrics, whatever gets you through the night. Yeah, be my guest. I stay in the real world, but anybody else can do what they want. Okay. With Sunday's loss to end a brutal weekend, the Cardinals are now 1-5 in their last 1-5 in their last 6 games, 4-11 in their last 15 games, 15-21 in their last 36 games, and they are 19-25 since May the 30th. Now, those of you who watch me regularly, read me regularly at STL Sports Central, you know that I always use May 30th as like the official beginning of the fall. That was that series in Texas where the Cardinals all of a sudden couldn't score runs. A couple of their pitchers got beat up, and you just got a sense, man, things are getting just something's changing here. And so I've been keeping close track of all this stuff since May the 30th. And let's start with what they did before May 30th, right? Before that, in their first 56 games, the Cardinals were 8 games over 500. Later to get 9 games over 500, but just for the first 56 games up until May the 30th, 8 games over 500, they had a plus 25 run differential. All right. In their 44 games since May 30, the Cardinals are 6 games under 500. And over that time, their run differential is a minus 43. So you go from a plus 25 run differential to a minus 43. It tells me, you were up in the clouds there for a while, but now you have kind of crashed back to earth and then some. Earlier the Cardinals were winning a lot of one-run games. They were dominating visiting teams at Busch Stadium. Their pitchers were never striking out people other than Sonny Gray, but, they were getting balls hit right at fielders. There was batted ball luck that worked in their favor. They even had, as we know, because we talked about it a lot, you knew it a lot, they even had a top 10 overall offense in terms of runs scored per game, and their starting rotation before May 30th ranked 10th among the 30 teams in ERA, and they were the rotation was 9th in fielding independent ERA. So things were going good. Well, to use the old phrase, the old saying or whatever, too good to be true, right? It seems that way. Because over the last 44 games, the Cardinals starting pitchers collectively have been wiped out for a 5.70 ERA that is dead bottom worst in the major league since the 30th of May. And over the last, this is important too, because you can overcome, I've said this in videos before, you can overcome one area of your team sort of falling apart if the other areas are strong, but that hasn't been the case. And that's what's important. This isn't just an isolated thing. You're seeing a systemic collapse, except for maybe their defense, and their bullpen has been pretty good too. But over the last 44 games, the Cardinals have averaged 4.1 runs per game. But it's really worse than that, as I've mentioned before. So let's update it after the weekend in Arizona. Their run scoring average since the 30th of May is again, it's a little misleading because the Cardinals over that time, and you know how they get, all of a sudden up out of nowhere, they'll score 11 runs. And then 2 days later, they'll score 9. And then they'll, 3 days later, they'll score 10. And it's like, oh, this offense is really good. But then you got to focus on the fact that it's an extreme offense. If we're going to talk about them all the times they've scored 10 runs or more, or whatever, let's look at the bottom line during this 44-game stretch in which they have had, what's the record? I keep losing my thought on it. 19-25 record. In 21 of those 44 games, that's 40% of those games, the Cardinals have scrounged for only 3 runs or less in 21 of their last 44 games, no more than 3 runs, and a lot of 1-run, 0-run, 2-run games. And before Sunday's game, the St. Louis hitters since May the 30th had ranked 25th among the 30 teams in batting average, 25th on base percentage, 25th slugging, 26th in OPS. So, my friends, and I think I'm speaking to the preaching or singing to the choir, when you have the worst starting pitching in baseball since May 30th, and you have a bottom 5, bottom 6 offense in baseball over those same 44 games, and you have a run differential of minus 44 since May the 30th, here's what it means. it means, sorry, you stink. You're not a good team. In fact, you're a lousy team. Now, the Cardinals, as I alluded to, still play above average defense, and their bullpen has actually been solid during this spiral time. But other than that, not a lot going on. I'm talking about good stuff, not a lot. And it could get worse. The Cardinals are sidelining Matthew Liberatore by skipping his next start, which was scheduled for tonight, Monday night at Coors Field. Libby will pitch instead on next weekend against the Padres at Busch Stadium. In his last 8 starts, and I mentioned this a lot. I don't think people kept ignoring this. People in the media, I have no idea why. But in his last 8 starts, it's like this assumption he was going to bounce back. Everything's going to be jiffy. Last 8 starts, man, his strikeout rate had fizzled. It had fizzled to like 15.5%. That's down there with Polani and Mikolas and Fetty, and Palante. Before at least Libby was giving you like a 22% strikeout rate, his first 10 starts, but that strikeout rate, his stuff has been going down and down and down. You could see the deterioration in every statistical measure you would want to use. I mean, home run rate was up, the walk rate was up, all the things that he was doing really, really well before, all of a sudden was falling apart. It was pretty obvious that he was having problems with the increased innings because he hadn't been a major league starting pitcher for a full season. And listen, I never hesitate to praise or defend Ollie Marmol and Dusty Blake when I think that they've done a good job, or when I think, they're the subject of like predictable, lazy, idiotic criticism. But I really don't know why Marmol and Dusty Blake didn't skip a couple of Libby starts earlier than this, because after all, the Cardinals did have Michael McGreevy down in Memphis for a reason, according to the Mr. President of Baseball Operations. Oh, we got to keep him down there because we need some depth. We don't have much behind him. Well, if you've got a first-time ever full-time major league starter in Matthew Liberatore, and there's a question about innings load and all that stuff. Well, if you notice that Libby, who we all like very much, and I'm not surprised he kind of ran out of gas, but if you see this happening in real time before your eyes, why wouldn't you call up McGreevy to make a start or two and just give Libby a couple of quick breaks where you just skip over his turn in the rotation? They got enough in the bullpen. That's another thing I'm tired about. This stuff started with Matheny, and it even continued with Schilt. It's continued with Marmol, and I'm glad that you now are limited how many relievers you can carry, because all 3 of these guys wanted like 25 relievers. If it was possible to have, I'm obviously making this up. I mean, I'm for just doing this just to entertain myself. But, if there was a way for these guys to have 15 relievers, they would have done it. But instead of calling on McGreevy to make a start or two, they stayed with Liberatore's tired arm, and he wasn't missing bats. And now they're giving him a brief shutdown, because the shutdown was, he was off for how many days, including the All-Star break? And now he's going to miss most of the week. I think he's going to pitch Saturday again. So they're giving him an extended break as these things go. But maybe a couple other breaks earlier would have helped him avert or getting to this point, right? We'll never know because they didn't do it. So McGreevy's going to make Libby start Monday's game against Rockies. And frankly, I don't give a damn what happens in this one, because number one, it's Coors Field. And number two, he should stay in the rotation for the remainder of the season, unless you all think that, oh, no, you got to keep Fetty and Mikolas in there. Who says that? No one. I know that the Rockies are really bad, historically bad, but it's kind of interesting. And they are bad. There's no doubt about it. But it's kind of interesting. They just won 2 out of 3 over the weekend, beating the Twins at Coors Field, and they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. You know what the Cardinals' record is in their last 10 games? 4-6, same as the Rockies. So I don't think anybody wearing the birds on the bat should be snooty about the Rockies when we're looking at a Cardinals team that since May the 30th, there's that date again, 12th in the National League in winning percentage. And in this series, I don't care whether it's the Rockies. I don't care what. I don't care. They're going into Coors Field, and they're going to start in order: McGreevy, Fetty, and Palante against the Rockies. I'll just leave it at that. But even if the Cardinals win the series at Colorado, so what? What, you think they're about to go on some rampage and they're unstoppable and they're going to muscle themselves past the Reds, the Giants, the Padres? Hey, maybe they'll even get after the Mets and the Brewers and all these other strange fantasies that come from inhaling something maybe by mistake. I don't know what it is. But after the other thing is, after their lame effort at Arizona, the Cardinals are only a game ahead of the Diamondbacks in the wild card standings. So the Cardinals really did the Diamondbacks a favor by basically laying down and let them beat up on them for 3 days. But as I said earlier, the Diamondbacks did the Cardinals a favor because now it's harder for the Cardinals to talk themselves into this nonsense that they're in the race and they got a legitimate chance. There should be, listen, all of that should be suspended after this weekend. So the Diamondbacks did us a favor, the way I look at it. And if the Cardinals have a good 3 days in Denver, okay, not exactly, I'm trying to think of some kind of metaphor. I didn't, it's not like, climbing Mount Everest or something, right? Okay, then they got to come home and pivot to a 7-game homestand against the Padres and a much improved Marlins team. Marlins are on a roll, man. Don't discount them. I mean, that's good. That'll be a good team coming into Busch Stadium. The Padres are the Padres. They've been inconsistent, but they got a lot more firepower than the St. Louis Cardinals do. So even if the Cardinals would go 6-4 in these next 10 games, we got to call off all this talk about selling at the deadline. Look, I just gave you all the fact base of reasons why the Cardinals are not close to being the same team that was 9 games above 500 after sweeping Cleveland in late June. Since that sweep in Cleveland, the Cardinals have lost 11 out of 15, and they have been outscored 91-48. Minus 46 run differential. If I did that right, all of a sudden I think I didn't. See, this is with me, man. You get what's authentic. No faking here. 91 minus 48, minus 43 run differential. See, I corrected myself on the fly. A minus 43 run differential in 15 games? Doesn't that tell us who the Cardinals are, what they are? All the good times there, May's long gone, man. May's long gone. And these dudes aren't even competitive here recently, and really going all the way back to late May. Not even competitive, which, come to think of it, it's a good way to get into my Blue Chew pitch to the men out there. Blue Chew is a big blue dose of power that can help you raise your game during those special intimate times with your partner. If you're struggling terribly at the plate and you can't hit for extra bases, got to get a little scratch hits or whatever, then turn those strikeouts or those dinky little singles into home runs. Blue Chew can help you. Remember that commercial during that home run craze of summer of 1998, McGuire and Sosa and all that? I forgot. I honestly forgot the company that ran this great commercial campaign that had the 2 Braves pitchers. Remember that? Chicks dig the long ball. Remember that? Chicks dig the long ball. Okay, well, here we are. Get some Blue Chew and activate a more powerful, capable bat. The motto is simple: chew it and do it. It's that simple. And Blue Chew can help men of all ages, including guys like me who are in their 60s. I appreciate what Blue Chew does for me, so I'd like you to discover the benefits as well. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for enhanced intimacy. So it is time for you to get back in the game. Do not delay. Do not fool around. Don't feel sorry for yourself. You can get help from Blue Chew and have more capable and better equipment. And you're going to get the first month of Blue Chew free. You're just a few clicks away. Easy to get started. You sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online, simple and private, nothing awkward. So try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use promo code Bernie. You just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Bernie. Visit bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Bernie Show and being here for us to help all men that needs their help get their help. Welcome back to my third and final segment. I think this will be a shorty. What to do for the deadline, before the deadline. What to do, what to do, what to do. I'll say it again. Sell, sell, sell. That's an automatic for 3 relievers on expiring contract: Ryan Helsley, Steven Matz, and Phil Maton. I'm assuming there's going to be a good market for those guys. You got no reason to hold on to them. None. By the way, there's nothing, with all due love and respect to y'all, there's not one thing any of you can say would get me to convince me to change my mind. I'm sorry. I just won't. And as I mentioned last week, and I'm going to keep hitting this one too, and with teams so desperate for lefty, in particular, left-handed relief help, Mozeliak needs to make lefty reliever Jojo Romero available for trade. He's been great since late April. His ERA is now since late April, is like 0.41 or something. And he's got a season left before he can head to free agency following the 2026 season. So he's got 1 season to go beyond this one. But that only increases his value because a team's not renting him. It's a good team gets him for the stretch run, then they know that they have him for 2026 as well. And here's my philosophy, because I'm just tired of this tiptoeing, this tap dancing, tired of it. Mozeliak should make it known within general manager, baseball president, ops circles that every player on his roster is available. He should check in and see if the dudes with the no trade clauses, Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, would be willing to waive their no trade protection. Number one, I doubt that they would, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And number two, I'm certainly not sniffing glue and thinking like there's like 7 teams lined up to trade for Nolan Arenado. But again, it doesn't hurt to ask. And you put everybody out there, let's say, hey, listen, we're willing to listen to offers on anybody. That's the way you need to approach this. Every player should be available. The ones that aren't protected by no trade clauses, and unless those guys or one of those guys or whatever is willing to waive that, every other player should be available. And that doesn't mean, and I'm not saying Mozeliak should be running an everything must go sale. I'm not saying that, because the Cardinals have some players, good players, that they should keep in place. I said good players. Let's not do the stupid thing that we always do in St. Louis. And I think it's actually worse this year than I've seen. Overrating your own players. Mozeliak does it, and you think by now fans know better. How many times are you going to get burned by the fact that John Mozeliak's overrated his own players? So my point here is I'm not saying trade everyone. I'm not saying everything must go. What I'm saying is the guy that runs the baseball operation should be willing to listen to offers on everyone, not trade everyone, but at least listen to offers on everyone, or at least those who attract interest from other teams. And that's a huge difference. So if Mozeliak gets a generous trade offer from multiple Cardinals, well, he should seriously look at all of those offers. He shouldn't rule anything out. And I don't care who it is, depending on the quality, the enormity of the offer. See, the Cardinals can't afford to be timid here. There's no need to be chicken, okay? As I've just said, and I'll say it again, stop overrating your own players, because Mozeliak's history of wildly overrating his own players is a big factor why the Cardinals are now, through Sunday, they're 22nd in the majors in winning percentage since the start of the 2023 season. In my experience covering John Mozeliak, talking to him through the years, he's a tough guy in only one area: scapegoating managers to cover his own rear side. Managers that he alone hired. But Mozeliak, except for that, he's let just about everything else slide, and that's why there's a chance the Cardinals will likely miss the playoffs for the 6th time in the last 10 seasons, if it happens this year. But there's even something different about that. If they miss the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive season, all right, this would be the first time that the Cardinals have missed the playoffs 3 years in a row, but done that twice since Bill DeWitt took over as the owner before the 1996 season. That happened only once when Walt Giaconetti and Tony La Russa were running things. 1997, 98, and 99. Cardinals did not make the playoffs. But after that, the Giaconetti-La Russa pairing never went more than one season without making the playoffs, from 2000 through Giaconetti's final season in 2007. After that, it's up to Mo, right? And so here he is, Mo, on the verge of missing the postseason for 3 straight years for the second time since the start of the 2016 campaign. So I think, on Sunday I learned that the standards are impossible to recognize when you have Miles Mikolas after giving up 2 just monster home runs, throwing the ball, basically just hit it. I'm going to throw you that 91-mile-an-hour fastball, and I'm going to go up. You're not going to be able to catch up with that. That would have worked. That would work great if it was like 1984. But Miles really proud of that 91-mile-an-hour heater, isn't he? And then he stands there after the game, tells people, well, those 2 home runs were hit hard, but other than that, pretty solid. Okay. You don't think the standards have dropped? But the standards have dropped because DeWitt and Mozeliak have allowed them to drop, all right? And if Mozeliak screws up again, it will only make it harder for Chaim Bloom to engineer a quick turnaround. And that would be a shame, because that would be a missed opportunity on top of a missed opportunity. Missed opportunity last winter not to sell off Helsley and Fetty. Missed opportunity if he's not smart enough to do that. Not just those guys, but also the guys I mentioned, the pending free agents, Matson, Maton, and Helsley and Fetty. And so then he would also miss a final opportunity to kind of set things up at least a little better for the guy who's going to replace him. It's just really discouraging what the Cardinals have become. And thank goodness the leadership change is underway. It's happening in the player development system. And we saw the Chaim Bloom effect on the draft with all of a sudden they're drafting power pitchers. So anyway, I'm going to shut up for now. I've done enough hollering. That's all for me for today. And I thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, leave your comments. Until next time, you have a great rest of your Monday. And thanks for supporting all that we do here at STL Sports Central. Thank you.